When I was younger, my favorite destination was Target. To most, it was just a regular shopping center, but to me it was a wonderland brimming with exciting, shiny new items. My anticipation was always at its peak whenever my dad said we were going there. While he shopped, he knew I was well-behaved enough to explore on my own, so I'd spend hours lost in the magic of the toy section and marveling at the latest gadgets in the electronics department. But it's strange how one incident can completely alter your perception of a place. This change happened to me when I was 12 years old during one of our routine trips to Target. I remember heading towards the sports section to check out the new rollerblades and skateboards. But as always, the magnetic pull of the toys was too strong to resist. The latest Space Defenders action figures had just hit the shelves, and I was eagerly awaiting the chance to get my hands on the new command ship model for my birthday. I was lost in my little world, surrounded by action figures and playsets, when my sense of joy was abruptly interrupted. A tall, broad-shouldered man approached me in the aisle. He didn't wear a Target employee badge, which struck me as odd when he asked if I needed help finding anything. I politely declined, saying I was just browsing. However, instead of leaving, he lingered nearby, making me uneasy. When he inquired about where my parents were, red flags went up in my mind. My dad's advice about stranger danger echoed in my head. Playing it safe, I mentioned that my dad was in a nearby aisle. I quickly put the toy back and made my way to the other end of the aisle, hoping to distance myself from the stranger. But as I glanced back, my heart sank. He was following me. Panic set in and I bolted. I didn't understand why, but I knew I had to get away from him. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I just ran as fast as my legs would carry me. My destination was the apparel section, but as I got there, my heart dropped. The man had somehow outmaneuvered me and was standing at the end of one of the aisles. We locked eyes, and I froze, not knowing what to do. Just as he took a step towards me, a woman with a toddler in her shopping cart entered the aisle. Without a second thought, I approached her and said with feigned relief, "Hi, Mum, I've been looking everywhere for you." She looked confused at first, but as she noticed the man retreating, understanding dawned on her face. She nodded and smiled, playing along. She kindly escorted me to the customer service desk, where I was reunited with my dad. Upon hearing my story, the store staff reviewed the security footage. They discovered that the same man had been loitering in the toy section several times that week, seemingly watching for a young, unaccompanied child like me. Since that day, my family and I never returned to that Target store. It's a stark reminder of how quickly a place filled with joyous memories can transform into one of unease and fear. I still shudder when I think about that night. It's etched in my memory, a haunting reminder of how quickly things can spiral into terror. This all happened just after my 21st birthday, during my junior year at college. Life was fairly routine back then. I had a close-knit group of friends all around my age, and we decided to rent a quaint cottage together. We were neither the social butterflies nor the recluses of our class, and we seldom ventured into the chaotic world of college parties. The incident occurred one evening when my housemates decided to attend a huge bash hosted by a popular sorority. I chose to stay back, relishing the rare opportunity to have the cottage to myself. Coming from a bustling household with siblings and extended family always around, solitude was a luxury I seldom experienced. Our rented abode was a charming, slightly run-down Georgian-style cottage. The exterior was a bit shabby, but inside it was a different story, with tastefully modern furnishings. My room, in particular, was my pride, arguably the best in the house. One of my housemates, Emily, was the most imposing among us. She wasn't overweight, but stood an impressive 6 feet 2 inches tall. Her presence was overwhelming, and though she was generally friendly, there was an unsettling coldness in her eyes. Her smile never quite reached those eyes, which always seemed distant and calculating. Despite my initial reservations, I gradually got accustomed to her, as everyone else seemed to adore her. That fateful night, Emily and the others left for the party, leaving me in my much-anticipated solitude. I enjoyed my alone time, cooked dinner, listened to music at full blast, and settled down to study. Later, as I lounged in bed scrolling through social media, a sudden creak from the upstairs hallway pierced the silence. Assuming it was Emily, perhaps returning early, I called out to her but received no response. Confused and slightly unnerved, I decided to investigate. The hallway was empty. My unease grew as I heard another prolonged creak. The fear that someone else might be in the cottage with me crept in. I was about to dismiss my fears as paranoia when my phone rang, breaking the silence. It was one of my housemates asking if Emily had come back early. They were worried as she had left the party alone. I reassured them and decided to check Emily's room, only to find it locked from outside. She wasn't there. My nerves were on edge. The once comforting solitude now felt oppressive and menacing. Trying to stay calm, I made my way downstairs for a glass of water, only for the lights to suddenly go out, plunging me into darkness. In my disoriented state, I misstepped and tumbled down the stairs, screaming in pain and fear. In the midst of my panic, I thought I sensed another presence in the house. Frantically, I grabbed my phone, using its flashlight to navigate in the darkness. I made a dash for the door, escaping into the night, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the driveway, the lights flickered back on, revealing Emily stepping out of the cottage, looking as perplexed as I felt. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone a mixture of confusion and irritation. I was at a loss for words. Her demeanor seemed off, her expressions forced. Our neighbor, an elderly man in his late 60s, approached us, concern etched on his face. He had heard my screams and called the police. Emily's annoyance at this seemed genuine for a fleeting moment before it vanished behind her usual impassive facade. I explained the situation to our neighbor, who kindly offered his home for safety until the police arrived. Emily, however, refused, insisting she felt safe inside the cottage. Her reaction only fueled my suspicions. After the incident, I confided in my other housemates about my doubts regarding Emily's behavior, but they dismissed my concerns. Only my parents believed me, and I eventually moved out of the cottage. To this day, I can't shake off the feeling that Emily was involved in some way. Her actions that night were inexplicable. The flickering lights, her unresponsiveness, her hasty movements. I still wonder if she harbored sinister intentions or if it was all a series of unfortunate misunderstandings. But the fear lingers, a constant reminder to always lock the doors and be wary of the shadows in the night. Many years ago, in the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula, I experienced something that forever altered my understanding of the world around us. My name is Luis, and at that time, I was accompanying my cousin Diego on a late-night drive. We were in an old pickup, the kind that had seen better days, typically used for howling maisi from our small farm. It was a moonless night, and the only road that cut through our village had recently been paved, replacing the old dirt path. As we cruised along, the silence of the night was our only companion, aside from the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of something in the side mirror. It seemed like a large dog, about 100 meters back. I shook my head, dismissing it as a trick of the light. Soon, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a light sleep. In my dreams, a nightmarish scene unfolded. A massive dog with deep, soulless black eyes was charging towards our truck. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding in my chest. Glancing at Diego, I noticed his knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel, his eyes wide with fear. He was pushing the old truck to its limits, going at least 80 kilometers per hour, which was unusual for him. "Why are we speeding?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He replied, his voice quivering. "That thing, that dog in the mirror, it's been following us, getting closer every time we look back." A chill ran down my spine as we both felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Diego floored the accelerator, pushing the truck even faster. The sound of paws hitting the pavement grew louder and more frantic behind us. "Whatever you do, don't look at it," Diego urged. I squeezed my eyes shut, but curiosity and fear got the better of me. I peeked out the window, and there it was, its monstrous black eyes fixed on Diego. It was like the creature from my dream, running alongside us, keeping pace with our speeding vehicle. Its gaze was fixated on Diego, unblinking and full of an ominous intensity. Diego, unable to resist, finally looked. Tears streamed down his face as panic consumed him. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature slowed down. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw it standing in the middle of the road. It had no legs. It was just hovering there, its black eyes boring into our souls. We reached our village in a state of shock. We recounted our tale to my grandfather, who listened with a grave expression. He explained that the new road had cut through an area believed to be sacred and cursed, known for its dark energy. He said we were lucky to have passed through unharmed, as many locals avoided the area, especially after sunset. To this day, the memory of those haunting, abyssal eyes lingers in my mind, a stark reminder of the mysteries and unseen forces that dwell in the shadows of our world.